They tried to silence Traoré at the UN, but he made Africa louder. In a shocking political move, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the fearless leader of Burkina Faso, was barred from speaking at the United Nations. But instead of backing down, Traoré turned rejection into a powerful statement that has ignited a wave of Pan-African solidarity across the continent and the diaspora. This video exposes how Traoré transformed censorship into strength, proving once again that Africa's voice can never be silenced. Not by the UN, not by the West, and not by global elites. What you'll discover. Why the UN refused to let Ibrahim Traoré speak. How his response became a turning point for African unity. Global. Reactions to Traoré's diplomatic power move. The rising momentum of Pan-Africanism and self-determination. Why African youth are rallying behind Traoré's leadership. This is more than politics. This is a battle for Africa's voice, dignity, and future. Traoré's response wasn't just defiance. It was a declaration of a new Africa rising. Join the movement. What do you think of the UN's decision to ban Traoré? Like, comment, subscribe, share this video to spread the truth and amplify Africa's voice. Why the UN refused to let Ibrahim Traoré speak. There is no definitive, publicly verified evidence in the provided sources or broader discourse that explicitly confirms the United Nations refused to let Captain Ibrahim Traoré speak at a specific event, such as the UN General Assembly. However, posts on X suggest a narrative circulating among some users that Traoré was banned from speaking at the UN, which may reflect perceptions of Western resistance to his leadership rather than a formal UN decision. This claim could stem from speculation or misinformation amplified on social media, possibly tied to Traoré's controversial status as a military leader who overthrew a government in 2022 and his outspoken criticism of Western influence. Possible reasons for any perceived exclusion from a UN platform include diplomatic status of military leadership. Traoré leads a military junta, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, following his 2022 coup against Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. The UN typically prioritizes recognized, democratically elected governments for speaking slots at high-profile events like the General Assembly. Military-led regimes, especially those that have suspended democratic processes, may face restrictions or lack formal invitations, as the UN emphasizes democratic governance. Geopolitical tensions. Traoré's anti-Western stance, including expelling French troops in 2023 and criticizing institutions like the IMF and World Bank, has strained relations with Western powers that hold significant influence in the UN. His alignment with Russia and China may have led to diplomatic pushback from Western nations, potentially influencing UN decisions or perceptions of his exclusion. Security and stability concerns. Burkina Faso's ongoing jihadist insurgency and internal instability might raise concerns about granting a platform to a leader whose government faces legitimacy questions. The UN may prioritize stability and establish diplomatic protocols over amplifying polarizing figures like Traoré. Social media amplification. The claim of a ban may be exaggerated or fabricated to bolster Traoré's image as a victim of Western suppression, resonating with his supporters' anti-imperialist sentiments. Without concrete evidence, this narrative should be approached cautiously. The lack of primary UN documentation confirming a refusal suggests this may be more about perception than fact. Traoré's supporters likely view any absence from global stages as deliberate marginalization, fueling his revolutionary narrative. How Traoré's response became a turning point for African unity. Assuming the narrative of a UN ban, whether factual or perceived, Traoré's response, leveraging alternative platforms like the Russia-Africa Forum in 2023, has been framed as a bold move that galvanized African unity. His actions have resonated as a rejection of Western-dominated institutions, positioning him as a leader in the Pan-African movement. Alternative platforms for advocacy. Traoré used events like the Russia-Africa Forum to articulate his vision for African sovereignty, echoing Thomas Sankara's 1984 UN speech with phrases like, "The slave who is unable to assume his revolt does not deserve to be pitted." By speaking at non-Western forums, he bypassed perceived UN gatekeeping, directly addressing African and global audiences, which amplified his message of self-determination. Alliance of Sahel States, AES. Traoré's leadership in forming the AES with Mali and Guinea in 2023, following their collective break from the Western-backed ECOWAS, marked a concrete step toward regional unity. This bloc prioritizes African-led solutions to security and economic challenges, rejecting external interference. The AES has been hailed as a model of unity by Traoré, resonating with Africans disillusioned with traditional regional bodies. Inspiring regional defiance. Traoré's defiance of Western influence, including expelling French troops and rejecting the CFA franc, has inspired similar actions in Mali, Niger, and Chad. His response to perceived slights, like the UN ban, has framed him as a leader who challenges global power structures, encouraging other African nations to assert sovereignty. Social media and youth mobilization. Traoré's speeches, widely shared on platforms like YouTube, have ignited passion among African youth. His response to exclusion, doubling down on anti-imperialist rhetoric, has turned a perceived setback into a rallying cry, fostering a sense of collective African resistance. This turning point has strengthened the narrative of African unity by showcasing Traoré's ability to transform diplomatic exclusion into a platform for mobilizing regional and continental solidarity, particularly among younger generations. Global reactions to Traoré's diplomatic power move. Traoré's diplomatic maneuvers, expelling French troops, aligning with Russia and China, and forming the AES, have elicited varied global reactions, reflecting his polarizing influence. Western criticism. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed frustration, claiming African nations like Burkina Faso show ingratitude for France's historical help. Traoré's expulsion of French forces and ambassador in 2023 was seen as a direct challenge to France's influence in the Sahel, prompting accusations of destabilizing the region. United States, U.S. Africa Command's General Michael Langley accused Traoré of using gold reserves for junta protection, implying Russian involvement via the Wagner Group. This sparked outrage among Traoré's supporters, who saw it as an attempt to smear his anti-imperialist stance. The U.S. has expanded its military presence in Ivory Coast, perceived as a counter to Traoré's influence. Western media, outlets like RFI and Western-sponsored media have been blocked or criticized by Traoré's government as neo-colonial agents, reflecting tensions with Western narratives. Support from non-Western powers. Russia. Traoré's pro-Russian stance, including public support at the Russia-Africa Forum, has been welcomed by Moscow. Russian flags at Burkinabe rallies signal this alignment, with Russia offering military and economic partnerships. China. While less explicit, China's growing presence in Africa aligns with Traoré's push for diversified partnerships, viewing his policies as part of a broader shift toward multipolarity. Turkey and Iran. These nations have also been courted by Traoré, reflecting a strategic pivot to non-Western allies. African and diaspora support. Across Africa, leaders like South Africa's Julius Malema and Ghanaian rapper Sarkodie have endorsed Traoré, framing him as a symbol of resistance. The Yoruba nation and diaspora communities in the Caribbean and beyond have hailed his anti-imperialist vision, seeing it as a revival of Pan-Africanism. Mixed regional reactions. While the AES nations, Mali, Niger, Guinea, support Traoré, ECOWAS and pro-Western states like Ivory Coast view his actions as destabilizing. The foiled coup attempt in April 2025, allegedly backed by Ivory Coast, underscores regional tensions. Traoré's moves have polarized global actors, with the West decrying his rejection of their influence and non-Western powers and African supporters celebrating his defiance as a step toward sovereignty. The rising momentum of Pan-Africanism and self-determination. Traoré's leadership has reinvigorated Pan-Africanism, a movement rooted in the early 20th century ideas of W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, and Kwame Nkrumah, and later institutionalized by the Organization of African Unity, OAU, in 1963. His policies and rhetoric have fueled a new wave of self-determination. Alliance of Sahel States, AES. The AES, formed in 2023, is a practical manifestation of Pan-African unity, aiming to create a federation free from Western control. Traoré's vision for a unified, junta-led bloc challenges the AU's and ECOWAS's Western-aligned frameworks, promoting African-led security and economic solutions. Rejection of neo-colonial structures. Traoré's criticism of the CFA franc as a tool of slavery and his push for a new currency align with Pan-African goals of economic independence. His nationalization of gold resources and rejection of IMF loans echo Nkrumah's and Sankara's calls for breaking free from exploitative systems. Cultural revival. Traoré's emphasis on national languages, indigenous values, and cultural pride, e.g., promoting Faso Dan Fani attire, resonates with Pan-Africanism's focus on reclaiming African identity from colonial legacies. This cultural renaissance inspires unity across the continent and diaspora, youth-driven momentum. Pan-Africanism is gaining traction among Africa's youth, who see Traoré as embodying Sankara's revolutionary spirit. Social media campaigns, rallies, and endorsements from figures like Julius Malema amplify this movement. Challenges to unity. Despite the momentum, Pan-Africanism faces hurdles, including divisions between nationalist and continentalist visions, as seen in the historical Monrovia versus Casablanca groups. The AU's operational challenges and reliance on external funding also limit its ability to fully embrace Traoré's radical vision. Traoré's leadership has rekindled Pan-Africanism by providing a bold, actionable model of self-determination, though its success depends on overcoming regional and institutional barriers. Why African youth are rallying behind Traoré's leadership. At 37, Traoré is Africa's youngest head of state, resonating deeply with the continent's predominantly youthful population, frustrated by traditional leadership and systemic challenges. Several factors explain the support. Youthful, relatable leadership. Traoré's age and military background contrast with Africa's often older, disconnected elites. His modest lifestyle, forgoing a presidential salary, and hands-on approach, e.g., farming with locals, make him relatable. Anti-imperialist stance. Traoré's expulsion of French troops, rejection of Western aid, and criticism of neo-colonialism align with youth frustration over foreign exploitation. His speeches, like those at the Russia-Africa Forum, echo Sankara's defiance, inspiring pride and hope. Bold reforms. Initiatives like gold nationalization, infrastructure projects, and massive recruitment for the Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland, VDP, address youth unemployment and security concerns. These resonate with young people seeking tangible change. Cultural pride and symbolism. Traoré's promotion of Burkinabe culture, such as mandating traditional attire in schools, taps into youth desires for identity and dignity. His invocation of Sankara's legacy further cements his appeal. Social media amplification. Traoré's speeches and actions are widely shared on platforms like YouTube and X, creating a viral effect. Rallies in Ouagadougou and global diaspora support amplify his image as a revolutionary leader. Frustration with democracy's failures. A 2024 Afrobarometer survey noted declining support for democracy in Africa due to its failure to deliver jobs, education, and health. Traoré's alternative vision of strong, anti-imperialist governance appeals to youth disillusioned with corrupt systems. While his popularity is undeniable, critics warn of the risks of a cult of personality and the challenges of sustaining revolutionary momentum amid security and economic crises. Conclusion. Traoré's leadership has sparked a transformative moment in Burkina Faso and beyond, leveraging perceived slights like a UN ban to fuel a narrative of African resilience and unity. His bold reforms, anti-imperialist stance, and alignment with non-Western powers have polarized global reactions, earning both Western criticism and widespread African support. The rising momentum of Pan-Africanism under his influence, particularly among youth, signals a shift towards self-determination, though challenges like security crises and regional divisions remain. His ability to sustain this revolutionary vision will determine its lasting impact on Africa's global standing.